Perfect. So we were saying that today is another webinar, and today we're going to talk about ageism. But let's go deep into the topic. I'm very happy that we have so many people joining us today. So first of all, I would like to ask our panelists if you can shortly introduce themselves, a few words, and tell us who you are and why do you feel that this topic is important. Bodil, do you want to do the honor?
Thank you. Yes, I'm Bodil Fors, and I have had a long career in IT as a leader, both as a CIO of companies and also as in consultancy. Short while also been doing some in other industries, but very much related to similar as the IT industry. At the moment, actually, I retired from my last CIO in spring, and I'm doing some consultancy through my own company at the moment, but also then some work that I'm not paid for, which I'm passionate about, which includes this. I want to promote as much as possible for the attitude change towards women, especially women, but also in general, ageism. And then another topic that I'm passionate about is that I joined also a group of sailing ladies for cleaner seas.
Thank you, Bodil. That's very interesting about the sailing as well. But Minna, would you like to go next? I think I cannot hear you, Minna. You're not muted, but I cannot hear you for some reason.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Yes. So my name is Minna Frank. Like Lucia said, I'm a board member of IWWOF. I'm currently both an entrepreneur and a doctoral researcher. I just started at a grad school, and it has something to do with this topic as well. At least the application process has. My interest, especially in terms of ageism, it is menopause-friendly workplaces and starting the discussion of menopause in the workplace and what menopause-friendly workplaces are, and creating that awareness as well.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Minna. We were talking about these webinars about menopause, so maybe it's the next one in line. Natalie, would you like please to introduce yourself? You have to unmute yourself first, then we can hear you.
Hi everyone, I'm Natalie Kuosa. I actually lived in Finland since '96. And I work also like a CFO for a software company for a long time. It's interesting because why I'm here talking, because my mind is actually still very young. I'm working with young people because I'm working in an IT company. But then my body reminded me that undeniably I'm aging. Especially also around me, I have friends, are facing challenges when they are like over 50 or even 60 to get jobs. So this really drew my attention, like what would be my future? What things I look like in Finland. And I have to say, it really concerns me. So that's why, I'm really interested in, discussing with fellow sisters here, how we can together, tackle this and, put a beginning of something that we probably can influence. Yeah.
Thank you, Natalie. Thanks a lot. I would like now to share with you a couple of findings that initiated a discussion among us in IWWOF, and we like to share with you, and then we can dig into the topic. So there was a recent article in Helsinki Sanomat regarding the wrong age. So and they did some interviews and researches about the topic of ageism. And as you can see in your screen, those are some of the testimony that were given by people interviewed. I want to say that after turning 50, I've been able to get an interview, except for one place. It could have been about qualification. I considered very carefully which place I applied to, a woman of 56. And another said, a few times there has been a comment that it's already time to start cooling down, even though I'm still in full working capacity, enthusiastic, motivated, and able to achieve. This was a male in his 60s. And then there's another important fact that for the first time in Finnish history, the number of women employed has surpassed the number of men employed, which we should celebrate this achievement, but at the same time, the obstacles for women in the working phase are still very high. So given these two considerations, and I would like now to ask the first question to our panelists. And well, we all know that Finland has been praised, especially outside Finland, as a gender equality policies. And we are, for example, the first country where we give all the women and the men both rights, for example, to vote and to run for office, which some countries are still not so lucky in 2023. But age and gender, of course, is be the clear issue. And I would like to ask to our panelists, maybe we can start now with Natalie, since you were the last one. Say if you have experienced that the gender or the age has been an issue in your work life. What do you can say?
I don't have personal experiences, as I said. I have been probably start work in this company when I was still young. I worked for this company already 13 years. So basically people consider me probably part of his young generation still. But then I heard from my friends for a reason or another, because many of them work for Nokia. Nokia has 2 rounds of layoff every year. Then majority of them they are prepared to give up, how to prepare their retirement, because if they are over 50, as also, in the article that you showed, it's really hard for you to get a chance even to the interview. If, your CV shows that, you have education, this is. So the HR can definitely guess, what age you are. So basically you don't even receive any contact. Then they will say, at the end of 2 months, they will say, sorry, you are not selected. So this is what I realized. It's sad because we are, still in a good condition to work and have a lot of experiences. But then instead of get them to work, they start to receive unemployment fee. There's no match. It's waste of resources. It's waste of all sorts of money. So that is what I see now.
Thank you, Natalie.
Or they try really hard to find a jobs, do all kinds of things, but some of them, because of language barrier, it's really hard to find a suitable job. They cannot even do cashier because they don't know Finnish.
So a gender, age, and background. These 3 combine are really creating a big wall to enter in the job market. But when we start this webinar, I have a few moments with Minna, and she was saying, I'm not sure if I have experience on this matter, but then it's just a question. It's you just apply for a new job. And Minna, would you like to share the story?
Yeah, because I've been an entrepreneur for some years. So I haven't been applying for jobs, but what I recently did apply for was grad school. And as I was sort of thinking about it and preparing for it and trying to find a professor who would be my supervisor, it was not directly pointed to me, my age. I turned 50 this year. But it was sort of implied in a sense that, does it make sense for you at this time in your life to do this? It took me by surprise because the people I approached were women, and they are also women who are very socially aware. But that the problem with ageism and with sexism is often that it's very difficult to point directly at at what's being said as being sexist or ageist. It is often implied, and then you understand what's being meant. But because it is implied, it's easily turned against you in a sense that you just misunderstood what I was saying, or you were just making inferences that don't actually, hold
They
true.
didn't mean it.
Yeah, they didn't mean it.
Yeah.
So, but it was implied between the lines, going like, I'm not sure it. At 50, it makes sense for you to start doing this again. So, yeah.
Understand. Thank you for sharing, Minna. What about you, Bodil? You have an impressive career, and sorry, my kids want milk. And what have you been feeling lately? Because when we were preparing this webinar, you said this is very important to you, and you feel somehow that you've been a slide towards the end of a career when you are still mentally very capable and very active. So would you like to share your thoughts and your story?
Yes, I have. I mean, I can say that I have personally actually experienced this. First of all, when I think this article that you show about from Hesari also, which has, I mean, talking about wrong age, and I often find that I started my career really in a male-dominated area, because in energy and power plant, I then slided into IT gradually. But the first, when I was going or landed a job, they all thought that I'm going to be the new secretary. And then you gradually get in. So first you are too young, so the wrong age. And then I did have, I mean, a successful career in the IT industry. I had headhunters calling me until on and off until I turned 50. Then the phone went silent. And whenever I tried to, if I looked at some interesting jobs, I got sort of didn't work, wasn't called into interviews. And at that time, I then, because I became frustrated, I formed my own company, and I did do consultancy. And I had all my clients were women, mind you. Interesting. And then I did actually land a job, the CI job, as a 58, but the reason was I knew the one was hiring from before, and she knew me, again, a woman. So I was 58 at that. But then I mean, now lately, I got told, and this is what Minna is talking about, is very subtle, you will not have that when everybody else is listening, that I should leave my work for my vacant for a younger one. And they just became frustrated, so I left. And I thought I have so much energy left to give to something else that I'm more passionate about than fight this kind of attitude. And I did the same thing. I have a lot of friends that have the same thing, that they have left because they get into just getting routine jobs, and not the interesting jobs goes to somebody else. So I think absolutely this article, which was in that we can also share. I mean, I actually translated that into English because it's in Finnish if somebody wants to read it. I think is very, very spot on about the attitude.
I understand. So, of course, as when we are talking about act of, like, for example, being victim of racism or ageism or sexism, unless one person is very blunt, it's very difficult, and as Minna was saying, point it out. But I think that if you are being in your career, if you're well educated, if you're a sensitive person, you can understand what the hint was about. So, and unfortunately, the story you're sharing has this common, of course, Natalie, not herself, but her friends. Whenever you want to switch your career, then that discrimination kicks in. But when we are talking here today is what actually organization can do to change this course of attitude. So what strategies they can put in place, because at the end of the day, there is a company let's say, that should make sure that the environment where the employees work is correct and there is no discrimination against anybody concerning the age, the sex, the background. As Natalie was saying, if you have then the three of them, this intersectionality is quite hard to combine. So what do you think that the company should do to address this topic? Bodil, would you like to start then?
Yeah,
what is your opinion?
I think there's a lot, I mean, that companies can do about it, but I think it has to start with attitude change. And how do you make, I mean, that change is a difficult one. So it has to be some people who are enthusiastic about this and make the talking about it, influencers, awareness building, so that really the attitude can change. And it's basically any recruiter in the company that actually then can also then influence or change that. So a lot about that is about the attitude.
It's very complicated then to change an attitude for a company. So that's why I think that there are policies, because as a company, you can educate your employee for a certain extent, but then there are policies that should kick in to prevent this discrimination to happen.
Yes.
Natalie, what do you think?
Yeah, policy are made by people anyway, so there's an attitude on that for those people who are responsible for the policies.
That I agree very much. So the company should be somehow being sensitive on the topic in order to issue policies to protect the topic. Natalie, what do you think about that? Is responsibility of the company, or is changing a shift attitude in the general society?
Yeah, I think it's a societal, effort is needed. Because in Finland in general, I told already Bodil and Minna that I have a friend who's American. She was fired by, laid off by Nokia when she's some 60s. And she had to go back to US to find a job. And there, they don't really look at that age or, as far as you experience your good conditions. So that's, of course, one of the reasons she went back to the US. So I look at, like in Finland, and I was told a long time ago, if you're over 50, you're done. That also makes me like, do you dare to leave your job or change your job, after you're 50, because the next job will probably, it will be difficult to find. So I think it's not for the companies, it's a general attitude change is really needed in Finland. In a way, it's talking that they have this työvoimapula, lack of resources, skilled people. In a way, you don't want to take in the people over 50s. Time has changed, nowadays, I think the 50 years older are probably in a much better shape than, probably 30, 50 years ago. But then the society has not come along, in changing attitude, system, processes. So I think it's like, there are things that we can still do to change, not everyone's, but partially, the attitudes.
Maybe more awareness on the topic, so then the society can actually start to change the attitude.
Yeah, the awareness, what we do here is first, this kind of panel discussion is really to bring the awareness. When there is acknowledgement of the issue, then there will be efforts to make the change.
I agree with you. Thank you. Well, the thing is that they are pushing the pension age higher and higher, but then they don't change the attitude to let people to have shifting careers. So this is like a bit of, does it make sense? 1 + 1 doesn't make 2 in this occasion. What are your thoughts? Do you think that is still the society, or are the companies, or is the government that should do something? We cannot hear you again, Minna. I think you did.
I'm fiddling with because I'm trying to use my new headset and I always keep pressing the wrong button. So I think it's different levels. So for example, the government can postpone retirement age as far as they please, but postponing the retirement age further does not change societal attitudes towards aging job seekers or aging employees. So that, we can implement certain things, but that doesn't turn into a change in attitudes. But what specific attitudes we are talking about is what I think is that employers seem to be suspicious of people who are over 50 and their ability to learn new things. That's one sort of very clear prejudice, that people over 50, don't learn as fast. That's one attitude that we need to change. The second one that seems to be prevalent is the idea that older people are more resistant to change. And those are sort of very specific issues, or very specific attitudes that we need to address, and we need to change people's minds about. Like Natalie was saying, people who are 50 now are very different from those who were 50 20 or 30 years ago. I know that many, at least in Finland, probably have in their family photo albums pictures of people turning 50, and they're sitting in a chair in front of all of these flowers, and they look very stern, and they look very old compared to people who are 50 now. So we are lagging behind in our mind in terms of what it is that 50 and 60 and 70-year-olds can still do and want to do. That's the one thing as well. But two very specific attitudes that we need to change.
So resistant to change and slow past or learning new things. This is the main two attitude that
yes,
they should come back to create more awareness about ageism.
Yes, that sort of being a mature employee does not mean that you cannot embrace change, or you don't like change, or you are not in the vanguard of change, for example. Or that, there's a Finnish saying that says that, an old dog cannot learn new tricks. And we need to change that too.
Very well said. Well, we live in a society where, like, back in the days when you enter a job, it was very likely that you will retire for the same job. But it's not the society we are currently living in, let alone talking about the gig economy. So if you are living in a freelancer and you are then over 50 and 60, I guess that their experiences are even harder than if they have to have their own clients. Do you have any thoughts on that, Bodil? Have you ever considered this gig economy in the ageism contest?
Yeah, you're talking about freelancer.
Yes.
Well, in terms of, yes, never been a freelancer, but a consultant in my own company is like a freelancer. So as I was talking about earlier, that I think it's absolutely very changed what you're saying. That people are not going to a job and sitting there for, until they retire anymore. It's very much changing. And a lot of people do this, actually, that they form their own consultancy company and actually do that as freelancer, if you want, because of today, because of not being able then to land a job when these attitudes are towards then hiring somebody who's over 50 or over 60, and there's a lot of examples of that, really successful even.
Yeah, like similar to what international women are forced to do, like it's called necessity entrepreneur. So
exactly.
It's a similar concept, like so you cannot enter the workforce, so you are forced to start your own business, like as a consultant later in the year, or trying to do an entrepreneur at the beginning of your career. So like it's a circle also, somehow.
Yeah, exactly. That actually, very much what Minna was talking about now really proves that you can learn and you can change at any age. Basically, it's more a question of actually your personality than the age.
Yeah.
And I think we should not make a lot of the age in terms of that.
Yeah.
It is really more a personality or what you are sort of want to do, can do.
Yeah. I was wondering, it just occurred to me when Bodil was talking about the setting up the consultancy and being an entrepreneur and getting work that way. And I was wondering, okay, in Finland, being an entrepreneur carries with it the idea that one is a sort of a forward-looking person and sort of energetic and whatever. And I wonder if then older people who are then setting up their own consultancies or become entrepreneurs like that, actually sort of, if that sort of counterbalances some of that ageism. Okay, we would not hire that person because we're afraid that he or she might not learn, or he or she is reluctant to change. But now that we've seen that she's set up her own company, she must be very dynamic. And it's sort of and it seems funny, but
it's not.
It looks like, no, but it looks like it works that in a funny way like that. I don't know, but it just occurred to me when Bodil was talking.
Good point, actually, what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely.
So basically, you have to prove yourself that you are still fast learner, that you are still actively interested in working, and then they give you a chance.
Yeah. So if you're sort of over 50 and you're a woman over 50, then you get a stamp of being a slow learner. But then if you're an entrepreneur, you get a stamp of being dynamic. So I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah. I can say that I know many young people, not very fast learner and very entrepreneur. They are not so dynamic, but that's a topic for another webinar, maybe. But here we are talking about attitude, we are talking about companies, but do you know actually some good examples of that these initiatives are being successful to combat this ageism in Finland? Do you know of, not only in the workplace, but even in the society at large? Do you have some example for us so we can brighten it up a bit, our hopes? Natalie, can you share any if you have, like we hope you do? You are muted.
So I think it's really part of, now this sustainability work is becoming a mandatory part of, all the different size of the corporations, like a big company or small company, regardless. It's from EU level, it's mandatory, so which is important. Lucia is also very familiar with us, is the DEI work. In the society, there are many articles, working groups, companies working on gender equality, working also on racism, against racism, and also sexuality, all this. But which is also good, it's also basically bring also the agent to light. So, but it's not emphasized, compared to the other topics like gender equality or racism or everything. I think it still is a very, very minor part. The good thing, along with the DEI work, I noticed, even in our company's recruitment, you basically work towards, and I think we are not the only one, towards the target that when we actually receive applications, it's allowed that you don't put your age. Of course, it's otherwise voluntary. You don't put your gender, you don't put your picture, no, not even name. So it's really anonymous, application. So that I think will also help the ages. You don't need to necessarily, we also discuss that. You don't need necessarily put when you went to high school. You just put your school, records going on. So at least you will get a chance to go to the interview, to impress the interviewers. So this is a step forward. And I think, while we're all working on the other areas of the DEI work, we need to bring strongly this also to the awareness of, the whole society. Yeah.
So keeping working on diversity and inclusion topics and
Yeah.
include ageism in these topics, because at the moment it's quite low ranked compared to
Yes,
other topics,
exactly.
basically.
Yes. Mm.
Very good. I mean, all goes around diversity as inclusion and now belonging topics. So
Yeah.
we need more diversity inclusion experts in companies. What do you
Yes.
think about that, Bodil?
Yeah, I do think so. And I mean, we were talking about examples. Well, myself also, that I landed a job at 58. Of course, it was because I knew the person who's hiring, but that's also a positive one. And I'm actually doing some mentoring at the moment. I have an adept who's near to 50, and exactly this kind of think about having the courage to how to I mean the discussion we have about how do I land a job, or what do I do, and there's quite a lot of this being able to give the person sort of self-assertiveness a push. It's just to really put yourself out there and so on. So these kind of things I think we all can do. And one of the things I wanted to bring up, not to advertise a book, but I was so very positive. There was a book that came out from Chambers of Commerce about, it's in Finnish, but it's about towards success with age diversity, written for companies. And there's a thing about research around this and attitude, and also about what to do in recruitment. So it's really as a handbook for people in the companies who are hiring, and managers in the companies, sort of those who are hiring. And why I was happy about this is because it started to be talked about. It was a group of 8 people that actually came about that through LinkedIn. They didn't know each other, but they have been talking about this amongst their own community, and they got together to write this book. So that told me that, hey, started to be talked about in Finland about this. And gradually, by talking about and making the awareness, we are going to change the attitude. So I feel positive about that, even though it will take some time.
So we start, at least now is in the agenda, so people start to be aware of it. Yeah, I've been International Working Women of Finland. It started as a Facebook group, and we recently have a survey like who are our members. So because 9,300 is a lot of women, and a lot of women actually in the age, the bracket age between 40 and 64. So I think it's very relevant for our community, and it's relevant that we at least start to talk about this. But I have a question for you, Minna, because you have been, I don't know if you have ever followed Minna's work, but she writes a weekly blog in her company website, Finwords. Sorry, I do some advertising for you, Minna. And she is been covering a lot of topics, but one of the current topics is actually the lack of talents in Finland. And this is, well, we are not going to talk about politics today, but is a bit, the government are taking some decisions that are not really facilitating for reaching the number of international talents, or in general talents, that Finland needs to continue to have the same welfare state. Do you think that the topic of AGEISM then it will benefit even this bigger topic of the lack of talents? So not only get into the pools of international, but even get it into the pool of more mature workers that somehow are forced out of the workforce. What do you think?
Most definitely. But obviously, in terms of numbers, it doesn't solve our labor shortage problem. But retirement age will be postponed for long. I mean, until longer. That's what I mean. There's not. I'm certain it will happen. It's just that it needs to happen. Our retirement age in Finland is now, people are retiring around 63 and 65, and that's very, very young. in terms of life expectancy in Finland. So that means that people will be retired in terms of expected life expectancy for 20 years. And that's a long time to be retired. I mean, you know, I'm sure that there are a lot of people who do want to, but there are a lot of people who don't want to. Exactly. And if you don't want to retire at 63 or 65, why should you? If you want to work, if you're capable of working, if you have tons of things to contribute, and why would you be forced out and spend 20 years of your life in retirement if you don't want to? So definitely that will change, but that necessitates change in attitudes. You asked before about examples, and I'm not sure if this is a positive or negative example.
Let's try.
Because there are now recruitment companies who specialize in mature employees.
Really?
And yes, and so on the other hand, it's a good thing, because then, you know, then older, mature job seekers can look for specific help. So in that way, it's positive. But you can also see it as a negative, in a sense that why do we need specific recruitment companies for mature job seekers?
So it's more discriminating somehow.
No, yeah, but on the other hand, it tells that these group of job seekers need specific help. So it is a signal of the fact that there is something wrong with the job market, that we need these type of specific services. So, you know, you can look at this from both sides. On the other hand, good that people get help. On the other hand, I'm not sure that we should not have a society where they need this specific help.
I understand. So we have to see how these agencies really work and affect.
Yeah, but there are at least there are at least 2 or 3 that I'm aware of currently.
Okay.
So,
but I would like to leave some space even for the question and answer. So I'm gonna ask you the last question to our beloved panelists. So what do you think that this community, so not only IWWOF, but in general, the community of women that they are sensitive to the ageism topic, can do to actually help those mature women in the working life when we are talking about age issues? So what can we do? Which concrete takeouts we can take from today's panel? Bodil.
Well, first of all, I think we've talked a lot about that already. This is about talking about it, bringing up the awareness, creating the awareness of this. That means through maybe these kind of panelists, but maybe also more openly talk about it, have presentations about it. But then the other thing I would like to bring up is also the support, because we do have, as you already explained, we have a lot of people, members in this community. And when a person is in the midst of this kind of at the workplace, because it's usually subtle and so on, who do you actually talk to? And many times people feel, I know this from my own experience, that you feel a little bit ashamed even to discuss it openly, that you are, even if you shouldn't. So I think in this community we can, find people that if anybody, I at least am absolutely willing to have a discussion in confidence with anybody who would like to a little bit, brief when feels that they are experienced this kind of attitude and age discrimination at their work, if they, even though how subtle it is, so that you get another perspective of it. So I think this kind of support is really, really important also to help. And of course, again, coming back to this awareness, which and having gradually, piece by piece, changed the attitude in this country.
So peer support basically is what is needed at the moment. So create some kind of peer support for people that face the similar issues.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Bodhi, and that's very insightful. Natalie, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I think, I told already, but I repeat here because it's very important. I say, we are actually doing a really great job as IWWOF and also society nowadays, on DEI. So we definitely need to, raise also the ranking for the ages and include that. The second point is, I think as a community, either peer support or this kind of, experience sharing that will help each other to age gracefully. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's low. I think, there is also, external help in change of attitude from society, but each of us also could learn from the others and by experience how we can do by ourselves, take care of body, mental health, get meaningful things to do, even someone doesn't have a job. So keep us really mentally and strong. I think usually why people are a bit afraid of, 50 or 60 years a woman, there's a myth. And we all always get irritated because of or this and that. So how we can change that,
Yes.
image of that is also, I think, this society, this community can help. Yeah.
That's a very
Together.
good point.
Yeah.
Thank you, Natalie. Well, I guess like a younger woman, when we are assertive, we always ask, are you in your period? While older women are starting to ask, are you in the menopause? This is what the society also asks, let's face it. But I wish men can have for 1 month a period or a menopause, and then we can start another topic. But Minna, do you have any other insight to share?
I like the Natalie's term or sort of aging gracefully, because I was thinking, I mentioned earlier that the two specific sort of attitude problems that we have, that sort of older people cannot learn and older people are resistant to change. And I was wondering, how can we change that attitude without forcing women my age and older to try to appear as if they were 30, so that we would be allowed to be our own age, but still be considered dynamic and able to learn and not resistant to change. And this has to do, I mean, this is the same discussion, like, for example, sort of female leaders, do they have to become sort of, in order to fit in, do they have to become specific kind? And this is the same thing. In order for me to be accepted, and in order for me to be understood as a productive employee, do I have to appear as something I'm not? So aging gracefully, allowing people to age gracefully, like Natalie said, but still believing in people's ability to learn and contribute.
Thank you, Minna. Well, I will ask. There are some questions in the chat that now I will ask, and the first one from Suvi, and she was asking, is any age-proof industry? Apart from geriatric doctors, I'm joking. I don't know. Nothing that comes into my mind. Do you know any age-proof industry that you would say? Well, Natalie was saying that she was in IT and most of her colleagues are very young. So I don't really think there is an age-proof industry. There is not such thing, I believe.
Yeah.
No, because it has so much to do with specific attitudes of managers and leaders, for example. So even if an industry in general might be sort of very welcoming to a diverse employees, then you don't know who's going to be the boss, who's going to be the manager, and what their and attitude is. So I don't know if there actually is.
To come to my mind now.
Yeah.
Okay, so the answer, Suvi, I'm afraid, is no. There is not a proven age industry, unless according to this panel. And Eva was actually sharing some insight that she was she's following even the German-speaking job market, and she noticed that they have company, of course, that they need skilled work faces, and companies are adapt and find ways to attract all even senior applicants. So people about, for example, to learn the local language, etc. But they expand and adapt. While in Finland, the companies rather downsize the findings of hiring skilled people outside the regional target group. So, for example, senior or foreigners. And this, according to Eva, has a huge impact on the economy overall. What do you think about that, Bodil? Do you agree whatever she's saying, that Finland is so resisting? Actually, they don't employ older people because they think they don't are able to change and adapt, but then themselves employer are the first that they are not able to change and adapt, basically. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think my experience is, I mean, this is, and I'm sad to say because this is my country, but I think, I mean, the attitude I find worst in this country really towards, and it has a lot to do. I mean, it is and perception that comes in from history very much, and it's very difficult to change this, and I think has a lot to do also with salary, because I mean, as you've been in the work life for a longer time, you tend to have a higher salary. So basically, those are the people that they want to lay off first when there's an UT, as we call it here in any company. And I've worked quite, I mean, in companies, even though in Finnish company, but also in international companies, I always found that it's in this country, it's worse than in many other places in the world, unfortunately.
Thank you. Well, Natalie, you have built your career, let's say, mostly here in Finland, because you have been here for many years. What is your thought about this? Is it Finland that is resisting to adapt and change and welcome more diversified workforce, or is a common determinator in other country, for example?
I think, basically based on my experience, I have a lot of like international friends. Basically, I feel like, personally, I'm very blessed because, I was able to, because I learned the language, know the culture and things. But if I see people around me, they really have difficulties, because this is a country where emphasize, the importance of Finnish language in all areas. It's getting better because there was no choice. And then, what I want to talk here is really I'm idealist. The first time when I saw in the US, when I was in a Disneyland with the children, and I saw this aged people, probably 70, and they are at the gate, welcome people. And I was talking to them like, why are you working? You should be retired. Yeah, I have money. But, I'm here to work half a day, see the people, and I'm happy. And then go back home, eat lunch, have a nap, one day is gone. Never feel alone again. Then I was like, why in the bar for someone to change it to our cashier or someone else, to welcome or something so difficult in Finland? So again, come to I think loneliness is also a huge problem in Finland. And now more and more people, basically, they don't get married. They don't have family. So as Minna said, if from retirement to, the end of life is 25 years, how they can spend their time. So why we don't encourage these people to get little bit, pocket money, to go to cashier, to go somewhere, their experience, their patient, their, precision, everything is needed, responsibility, is needed. So this is, my image of the ideal world that I want Finland to be also. So when I retired, if I want, I can go to city market, to be the mascot and to see the children, to comfort the parents who are tired. So yeah, that is the future I'm waiting for.
You will be my babysitter when you retire, don't worry. But joke aside, like I I think it is a different concept though here that we are talking about, because one have the choice to like retire and then do another job, like, you know, side job, let's say, where we are talking here.
Yeah.
But I think that the other topic is that when you're still in the working age and you still have to work before retiring, then you need, maybe your company closed or you want to switch career, then there is an obstacle. So what you're saying is like a choice that people can have, and in Finland is not the custom. So people just retired and they go to play lotto when they go to K Market, because when I go shopping 8 o'clock, there's a lot of pensioners playing lotto or the machine, but they don't work. But people who actually have to work, they cannot find the place for them. I think is more worrying.
Yeah.
But Minna, you raised some interest with the working agency for more mature people. So if you could share with us those names, Johanna and a few other would really like that. So I'll give you a few minutes to Google them.
Google, thank you. I was gonna ask for a few minutes because I heard a name today that I hadn't heard before, so I have to look that up. But I'll know the other one. But let me just take a few minutes.
Yeah, sure. And I think we can now recap what we've been talking today. So in order to, let's say, fight ageism, we need to be aware of it. So start to talking about that. So awareness is the first big step to tackle the issue of ageism. Then insert the topic of ageism among the topics of diversity, inclusion, and belonging in the companies or in the workplaces in general and in the society, so that people become aware of the problem. Then fighting the bias of recruiters, then they are thinking that a person later in the 50 or 60 is not able actually to learn new skills or to adapt to changes. We should fight this bias that is not confirmed by the reality. And then one of the topics that we suggest is that once maybe you're out of work for many reasons, prove yourself through the employers, through maybe opening your own consultancy company is a good way to actually show your skills and grab the interest of possible employers. So show yourself that you're still dynamic and still interested in and able to learn new things is one of the topics that we said. Natalie briefly mentioned one of the policies that we can adapt is to have anonymous recruiting. So there was some interesting articles about this and who is a way to fight discrimination. So when you don't have any age reference, but only the skills of the individual are reported in the CV, a good practice that other company should learn more. And then Minna told share us the good news or bad news. We still have to decide about this topic about company that are recruiting company that are specializing in more senior working people. And then in the end, we said that there is an interesting book that Bodil was sharing that is being published by the Suomen Yrittäjät, and is I'm gonna copy you the title here in the chat if you are interested. It's called Towards Success with Age Diversity. It's an interesting book that you can read about these topics and to just spread the news and make people around you more aware. And then we said that, of course, tackling to the senior work officer won't impact by number the problem of shortage of talent in Finland, but nevertheless, it could be a way to start to put focus on the senior workers that are out of job in order to tackle into them in order to find new workforce. I think this is all we've been discussed today. And now Minna has shared one of the company that come into her mind. She asked for 1 minute more. But anything else, Minna, sorry, Bodil or Natalie, that you think I missed in the recap of this?
No, I think you made a super job of wrapping up. It would be interesting to hear also from the participants some I mean, if they can give some feedback and if they have shared, I mean, ideas that how we could actually take this forward.